get started, first thing I'm going to do is ask that we have a roll call. Edie?
Sorry.
Katie Ashley.
Present.
Hal Bynum.
Here.
Chris Caldwell.
Here.
Lauren Carter.
Here.
Louise Hackler.
Here.
Art Sparks.
Here.
Lee Wills.
Here.
Mike Thornton.
Thank you. Lauren Carter, we're happy to have you. She is a student, our student representative. I think we met her at the last time because she was here for the program, but now she is an official member of the board and can make things change here at UT Martin. She is from Mississippi, but we won't hold that against you. And we found out at lunch that she and her sister are both here in school and living together. First thing I want to do is we receive the minutes, and I assume that everyone has looked at them. Are there any changes, or is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Monice, I have it. Julia with a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I'm going to actually turn it over for the campus strategic enrollment planning to our illustrious chancellor, who I'm sure that you saw a couple of weeks ago was awarded the Alumni Association Professional Achievement Award, which was an outstanding award both for him and for UT Martin. And we're extremely proud to have him as our chancellor. Well, that's hard to say. I'm kidding. But we're extremely proud to have him and the accomplishments that he has brought to the University of Tennessee of Martin and both to himself. Chancellor, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much, and thank you. It was quite an honor, and I'm really honored to be here at UT Martin. I would like to call up now to introduce Dr. Philip Cavalier, our Provost and Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. One of the things we had talked about as we look to our future and creating and fetching our own future in terms of enrollment is part of the strategic plan, is to look at where's our next generation, next groups and audience of students going to come from in this tight time. As we know, our traditional age population, that demographic of 18 to 19-year-olds that are going off to college is shrinking, not just in Northwest Tennessee, certainly, but across the state. So in order for us to stay viable, in order for us to produce more degrees, like we've been commissioned by the Board of Trustees and the President to do, that a strategic enrollment plan was needed. And Dr. Cavalier is heading that up for us, and I'll turn it over to Phil.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. As the Chancellor said, we've decided to do this strategic enrollment plan, well, for a lot of reasons, and obviously the enrollment piece, but also we want to get better at long-term planning, and this is a process that will help us with that on the enrollment side, on the budgeting side. I'll go through the slides and you'll see hopefully a little of that. Let me just say something about the organization we're working with, consultants, Ruffalo and Levitz. They've been around for about 35 years, and they are really the gold standard for enrollment management consulting. Think of them as McKinsey or Booz Allen in this area. They've worked with, in that 35 years, about 3,000 campuses. So they have an extensive background. They've done a whole range of services for those folks. And I feel very confident in the process that they have brought forward. It's a very tightly structured process. It is not an abstract goal or an abstract product we're going to get to. We will wind up with a plan that has a lot of action tasks, that has a clear sense of who does them, when they do them, and then a clear sense of how do we evaluate whether those things work. It's about a 12-month process, 9 visits from the consultants. We've had 2 already, which have gone extremely well, and I'll say a bit about that. It's comprehensive in scope. We're talking about looking at marketing, we're talking about recruitment, we're talking about matriculation, we're talking about retention and persistence to graduation. So we're not just talking about front end. We're talking about how do we get students interested and how do we get them here and keep them here so they graduate. Part of that is going to be looking at undergraduate and graduate program needs. And as I'll say in a minute, we're going to be getting a lot of research, some data that they're doing for us and market research to help us with that. So let me walk through the slides, which I think you all have had in your packets. We're basically going to take this in 5 steps, roughly 4 steps for the plan. We've done a lot of the prep work. We've started pulling the data that we need to farm out to the different groups that are working on this process. And we're at the point now where we're developing situation analyses in 5 areas. Really, where are we right now? What are we doing right now? What are the things we have to do? It's not quite a SWOT analysis. It's really a way to say, here's the jumping off point. What are the strategies we're going to do to improve those things or find some new areas that we're not taking advantage of right now that we can? And then from that, we're going to look at the strategies with an eye towards the mission of the institution course, return on investment, what is the likelihood of success. So again, being very careful about not creating pie-in-the-sky ideas, but what are the things that are going to help our enrollment, that are going to help our students, help this area, and that are also going to have a return on those investments. We'll create those action plans, and then as we get to the end of this, we will look at this plan, we'll implement it and look at this plan every year, refresh it, and make sure that the things we thought we were going to do and that would work are working. So I want to stress, this is not a 5-year plan, and once that's done, we're done. It's a plan that ideally we have for the next whatever number of years. That 10 years from now, we could be still using whatever we started with, but it will be different because we have year after year evaluated and assessed it. Just a little bit about the objectives. As I said, we really want to have a detailed plan that pushes us out thinking 3 to 5 years. I would say 5. We want to be thinking about what happens in 5 years if this year we have X number of students coming in as first years, X number of students coming in as transfers. You know, this is maybe a statement of the obvious, but if we bring in 1,500 students this year instead of 900, we live with that benefit for 4 years. Likewise, if we bring in 900, we live with that and have to try and compensate for that. So we really want to figure out, or at least have a way of estimating where are we going to be given different parameters, different kind of variables with enrollment and retention, things of that nature. This plan will help us do that. Also, we want to have a much clearer sense of what academic needs does this area have? Do our students who are interested in us feel like they need? What are the co-curricular activities that would help them succeed while they're here? So we're looking at, think about it as the 24/7 experience of students here on campus, not just the academic, but student life, commuters, athletics, but also on the front end. Are we offering what we need to offer? And I think that's going to be an important question. We do need to also understand what is changing about the demographics. And I'll say that it's pretty clear we are going to have to do a much better job of recruiting adult learners and adult returners, folks who have some level of college credits and who don't have a degree. We know that those folks are around us in fairly sizable numbers. Down around our centers, we have populations that would benefit from this kind of thing. So how do we reach them? And just give you a very small insight into this. When our consultant came the first time, he looked at our website and said, how do I get information about a program? And we had a form that was about 15 fields. He said, if I'm a working adult and I have lunch hour to figure out how to get information from UT Martin, I'm not doing that. He said, name, email address, and then go from there. That's a small thing, but it reminded us that really we are set up to think about 18-year-olds in a lot of ways. things, and we need to be set up to think about them. We want to make sure, and we have to continue to improve this, that we are making our decisions based on data. And like any institution, data lives in interesting, curious places, and so we're really trying to centralize that. But the research part of this project is intended for us to say, you know what, we really need electrical engineering, not because we have a gut sense that we need it, but because we have data that shows that prospective students in Berkeley County and Obion are asking for that. So I think those are important pieces, and what we're going to wind up with, I think, is a culture of planning. And we've had some of that, but we need a stronger culture. We need to be able to say at the end of every year, here's our budget, here's where we're headed. We know where, if these things hold, we're going to be in 5 years. Here's our enrollment, same thing. And what do we need to be thinking about? So let's talk about it just for a second. Faculty hiring. If we're doing faculty hiring year to year and serially, we're probably not planning long-term for building programs. If we're looking at building, let's say, an electrical engineering program, where do we need to add faculty? At what point? A much stronger planning culture is going to allow us to have that conversation. Now, we may find out that our assumptions 3 years down the road were not right, and we have to do something different. But I think being able to think like that will help us all to move towards a stronger institution that serves students better, but that also has the resources that we need to make sure that those things are sustainable. We don't get caught flat-footed when something happens. And I think, you know, of these other things, we want to increase our student retention rates. We're about 74% this year, which is up about 74.5, up about a point from last year, which is good. I think if we got over 80% for our student population, that would be a very good accomplishment. It would also be a significant increase in our overall enrollment. So, you know, wanting students to succeed, but keeping track of the revenue implications of our retention. I put in the summer school program piece here simply to say that's a revenue opportunity that we're not taking advantage of right now. And I believe that 2 of the working groups will be focusing on what can we do differently, working with students, and I'm thinking in terms of student focus groups to say, why are you or are you not taking summer school? What can we do that would change around your interest in that and build that back? So I think that will be an outcome. Just real quickly, there are five working groups. They've already been created, 10 to 12 people on each with a lead. And these are the folks who are going to do the work in each of these areas. And I'm not going to read through them for you, but they've already gotten started with that. They've been given different pieces of the market research or the market share, the academic program demand, different research projects that we've been given by Noel Levitz, and they will continue working for the next 9 months to get us to the point where we have action tasks for each of those areas, and that those will be woven into a larger plan. And then I guess the last piece of the SEP, and I'll speak to a 5-year enrollment plan here in a second. We're going to meet with our consultant in October again, and you'll see this is a fairly aggressive timeline in academic terms. I understand that, but moving this quickly, I think, will give us an opportunity, Jamie Mantu's group, to implement some of the things we're seeing right away during this recruiting cycle, but also get us to the point where when we start the next recruiting cycle, we're ready with this plan to go, and then it becomes strategic enrollment management at that point. Let me just say a little bit about this 5-year model, which you have in your packet. And we will get a 5-year enrollment model also from Noel Levitz, which is structured a little differently than what we've done here. Desiree McCullough, our institutional research person, and we talked about trying to model what our enrollment will be based on a number of variables. And what she came up with was a model that would allow us to change each of these variables and see what the effect is over 5 years. So what happens if our enrollment goes up to 80, or our retention goes up to 80% for first years? What happens if our new students goes up to 1,300? Those kinds of things. We have to change that every year. We have to update that every year based on what actually happens. But again, it gives us a sense of a trajectory. You know, if we're at 1,250, where are we going to be in 5 years? Up 500? Okay, that's going to be $3 million. So where is a point where we feel comfortable that we're in a different position than we were financially 5 years ago? There are a lot of things that we're able to plan if we can see what the effect of these variables changing will be. And then out of that, this is not the model itself, but this is just 5 scenarios that we created to give us a range, give us a sense of what might happen with different variables. And these are the high likely and the low likely, 3 and 5%. You know, we're probably going to be closer to 2% on that likely low, but I wanted to give you basically a range, and you could see what some of the differences would be. So on the far left column, you're going to see that over the course of 5 years, with the assumptions across the line, or across the row, we would increase in the best case scenario by about 2,500 students. If you drop down, you see if we don't grow based on the fact that we've replaced some small classes with larger classes over the last 3-4 years, zero growth would still mean we'd have more students, but that's not going to be a significant increase. And of course, we don't want to be in the worst case scenario category, and that's probably not even the worst case scenario. But I think we're wanting to live somewhere in that likely high, likely low. We're going to get the new information that we'll plug into this enrollment model probably in 2 weeks, and then we'll be able to see, okay, where are we tracking? What is the effect of this year's enrollment going out 5 years? This kind of enrollment model, we're planning to have flow into a budget, similar 5-year budget model, where we can see, all right, if we are up 2,500 new students, what's the effect on revenue? What would be some assumptions we could make on increases in expenses, and where would that net us out? So that's where we are, and I think, let me just stress to end that, you know, we've been doing some amazing things over the last 3 years in turning around the enrollment picture here. We're up on FTEs by about 60, and I think, as I understand, it's the first time in quite a while that downward trend on FTEs has started to turn up. That will continue to happen, but this process, I think, will give us a very, very strong roadmap for how to continue that, and also to offset the effects of the demographic drop-off that we're going to face in 24, 25. So are there questions that I can answer about the process?
Phil, what do you think the biggest hurdle you have is to get this done?
I think that this campus is all in. And, you know, you got the faculty senate chair here and others in the leadership. I think the biggest challenge is going to be making sure that we're taking the data and building off of it. So that may sound like a small thing, but I don't think as a campus we're used to doing that. I think the situation analysis will allow us to be realistic about what we can do. And I think without that, we would be, again, we would be imagining things that might be completely outside of a reasonable range. But I think in the various conversations I've had with faculty and staff, they feel like there's a need for doing this, and there's been no resistance or pushback on it. I think it's been embraced. Does that seem right, Chancellor?
I think this is a real culture change, but I think all constituencies on campus are ready to see what new audiences, what new markets, what new programs that are out there that we need to look at for our future.
And I think that also are in a year we may have a different conversation where if we identify a program that has a real strong demand, and we don't have that yet, there's an upfront investment in that. So how do we invest without putting ourselves in a real vulnerable spot? That's going to be a hard thing to manage, but I think if we are using data to say there are students out there who really want a master's in nursing, now we got to figure out how we can staff that thing up, knowing that there's a very high probability that's going to pay for itself. I think that's a resource management issue that we're going to face at some point, and that'll be a good thing.
I noticed that your transfers up there on your assumptions for the first four all stay at 425. You and I have visited on some of the obstacles that are out there on transferring credits from one university to another, and I've even heard that at times we've had trouble transferring UT Knoxville credits to UT Martin, and that's unacceptable to me. And I know we've talked about that, but I also found out from President Boyd that apparently there is a committee that has been formed that I think Chancellor Carver and you are both on, and I applaud that, but I encourage you to speak your piece when you get in there as far as making the transfer of these students from one campus, whether it's UT or not, easier.
And that committee the charge is clear from the president that we need to make it so that across the UT system you bring credits across. How we do that, I mean, obviously those are details, but I think the will in that room is to do that, because these are obstacles that we create that students sometimes they say, well, I'm not going to finish. I mean, little things oftentimes turn students away, and then they wind up with 90 hours and no degree. So I think to your point, if someone's coming from NTSU and has a valid set of courses, how do we make sure that we bring those courses in? And that's a conversation the faculty's having. The undergraduate council has been talking about transfer things as well, system-wide, absolutely.
Let me ask a question. Recently, the university took the Ag Institute into the Knoxville campus. Is there any concern that this may be a trend that the governor and the president are looking at as far as taking us in Chattanooga into the system?
It's a good question.
It's a great question. I have been told no, that as campuses, particularly as it looks at agriculture, that piece, one of the reasons that was done was for the research dollars and that sort of thing. I have been told that there's not a plan to move Chattanooga or UT Martin under the Knoxville flagship umbrella, that we are to remain obviously part of the UT system, but autonomous in terms of our academic programs. And specifically here, I've had some questions, and now I know you've gotten too, about our agriculture programs. But they're going to remain here with Martin, and I'll still be reporting to the president.
Is there anything we should be doing to assure that that doesn't happen? I can tell you that, and you've heard me say this before, we have quite a staff at Pixweek that are UT Martin Ag graduates. And I think it would be detrimental to West Tennessee for that program to go away. If anything, I think the Ag Institute should have come here, but anyway, that's a different issue. But is there anything that we as a group should be doing? Because I think that would be really detrimental to this campus.
Yeah.
It's total different
Sure,
here.
sure. I don't think there's any interest in that. And I think what I would do is, if there was ever a time that conversation was taking place, just making sure we got some constituents together to talk about that. But that's not on the table right now, and I've been assured. So I think any sort of action would be
Premature.
yeah, absolutely. But No, we've not heard anything, and even in the middle of all the assimilation conversation, we were never a part of that process. And I've attended one listening session for the merger, and even in that conversation, I had some conversations with, do I need to be preparing or responding to anything? Thank you, good question.
Good question. Maybe we need to go on the offensive and tell them we're fixing to take the vet school over here in Martin.
Edie, strike that from the minute.
I think it's recorded.
That's
okay.
right.
That's okay. Any other questions?
Good question.
I was just going to say, to Ms. Julia's point, if it's any level of comfort to everyone statutorily, there would have to be a change made before there could be any type of
Okay.
consolidation into any one of the campuses. That was part of the bill that was passed a couple of years ago.
Good
Very,
to
very
know.
specific.
Very good.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd be interested in is seeing the enrollment for the last 5 years as to what's happened here versus this plan going forward. If we could just see the basic numbers of what has happened.
I'm actually going to call on Keith to, between item 4 and 5, to, let's go over the
Okay.
numbers that, and I imagine he will be able to give us the numbers for this year. But your 5-year thing is very needed. Good point. Phil, I would say the only question I have is, if there's anything that we as a group can do for you, you be sure to call on us, because we're behind anything that can help this university out as far as growth and everything else.
Great, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you, Phil.
I'm actually going to, like I just said, between item Roman numeral 4 and Roman numeral 5, I think Keith has some numbers for us as far as what the current enrollment is and some of the demographics there. Do you feel comfortable giving them now?
I do. And these are, thank you, these are all preliminary. We're still cleaning up. Obviously, we've got to report everything to THEC, but we feel good about these, but until we receive our blessing from the state. But I'll tell you, in terms of head count, this year, total head count, we went up 233 students, so that's a 3.5% increase this year in head count. In terms of first-time freshmen, we went up to 1,141, which is a 2.6% increase in freshmen, which we're really excited about. I think when you talk about total growth, the area we went down this year is in transfer students. We're actually down 14 students over last year. So when you look at full growth this year overall, 3.5%. When you look across the region, that puts us sort of towards the top of the class this year, especially with our freshman number. Most everyone like us was down in transfers. When we try to dig into that and find out why are we down 14 transfer students this year, I was talking to Katie at lunch. A lot of the community colleges are down 5% overall in terms of their enrollment. What's that mean? Well, Moniece, a lot of them are going to work. Job market's pretty good. There's jobs, so they're going into the workforce. So one of the reasons the enrollment plan is so critical is if we're not getting, if that pool is shrinking at the community college level, we're going to need some new markets to go into, out-of-state adult learners, focusing more in our centers, the areas where we have centers, really hard, and we think we can counteract that, but the community college pipeline isn't what it was 3, 4, 5 years ago. And 5%, when they're down 5% in enrollment, you know what that means for us a year or two later with that pool. But we're very pleased. University of Memphis is also slightly up, but around the region, most everyone's down. So I really applaud our faculty and staff team that have worked with enrollment and making sure over the summer those who have committed and said they're coming, following up and making sure they're coming and registering and paying their fees. Every student really counts in terms of these numbers, and our teams work really hard to build this class. So we're really happy.
Keith, when you say the region, I know some of the states north of us have had some challenges within their budgets. Do those regional numbers include like the Southern Illinois, the Murrays, the Western Kentuckys, the SEMO? Okay, so we seem to be holding our own or
We
doing
seem
better.
to be holding our own. I think, is Jamie, Dr. Mantooth, are you here? Murray also, did they report a slight increase this year? Correct. They did, okay.
They took a real hit last year.
Right, they took a pretty massive hit last year. And so they're coming back. They aren't where they were 2 or 3 years ago, but they did slightly come back up. But Southern Illinois, Carbondale, SEMO, they experienced similar issues.
I think you said that our full-time equivalent students were up, which is a good thing as far as Petra's concerned.
That's exactly. Yeah, Petra likes those FTEs. So you're not only getting the full-time enrollment, you're not only getting tuition dollars, but you get a state credit. As Ashley knows, the state, as you increase FTEs, that's additional funding from the state.
Okay. Kids coming from Tennessee, kids coming from surrounding states, or is there any change in the mix of the students?
Similar, still about 95% in-state, but I think that's going to change. I've tasked our team to look at a very aggressive out-of-state. We have reduced out-of-state tuition. The Board of Trustees reduced that in 2016 to increase just a discounted out-of-state rate. Internally, our team this year is looking at a pretty strong out-of-state proposal that we would bring to you all to look at and give us advice on, where we revise that even again. The University of Memphis has gone out with a pretty aggressive plan. We may not copy theirs, but we want to do something where we're still getting the out-of-state revenue, but figuring out where that tipping point is, because now we are, even our out-of-state now is attractive. We want to make it even more attractive, especially with what's happening with tuition in Kentucky, Illinois, Arkansas, and Mississippi. So I think you all will see pretty soon, and we can probably discuss preliminary as an information item in January when we get together some of the things the group is considering internal for your perusal. But we've got to be more aggressive. Murray State is doing the same thing, and so we know they're going to be dipping down hard into our area. But our tuition is still going to be less expensive.
If you follow Keith on social media, I'm sure a few weeks ago you noticed that he went around to several different schools and actually delivered the acceptance letters, and that went over rather well with the schools that I've heard from, and that was a good thing. Anything else in on the numbers?
Just quickly, we've got students from 44 of the 50 states this fall and 21 international countries. So pretty exciting. Pretty exciting.
Okay.
What about your first generation?
First generation still maintaining about 37% of our students. This class, our number, Julia, that have been Pell eligible has been around 48%, so almost half our campus is Pell eligible. This year's freshman class coming in, 52% of those are Pell eligible. So pretty remarkable numbers, but again, two groups that we've really got to watch and help. They've gotten access, but we want to make sure that they're completing. So.
When will we have, go ahead. I was just going to say, is there any like specific, like, not programs, but like specific offices or people that these first years can go to?
Well, obviously, do you participate with your pet group? As a freshman, yeah. So really yearly looking at the PEP program, and PEPK, you probably had a PEP team when you were here, really working through the first year studies program, working with the peer PEP leaders and keeping those PEP groups together when you come as a freshman, and making sure that people aren't falling through the cracks. Student success counselors have been successful in that. This year, for the first time, and I promise I did not ask Lauren to bring this up, so this was not planned. But this year, we actually did, and under Dr. Mantooth leadership, we actually did for the first time a transfer boot camp. We brought in 30 transfer students. We had a day and a half here and a day and a half at a campsite, and got faculty and staff together. I got some students to come and work like an orientation session, but really it was to help integrate the transfer students into the UT Martin campus. And they spent the first night here. They did what Dr. Mantooth called a Legends Tour, where they went to the Friends statue, and the Friends statue is of Dr. Phil Watkins. Well, Phil Watkins was there to talk about his impact. They went to the alumni gym and had one of Pat Summitt's old friends, Julia Brundage, there to tell Pat Summit stories. They went to the Alumni Center and they had Nick and Kathy Dunnigan there to talk about their experiences. So not just let them get to know their faculty and their new students, but also some of the traditions that make UT Martin special. And I think that's a program that we received a grant from the Tennessee Higher Education Commission to do that. We'll do that again next year. But I think it's a pilot program, but I think we're going to see some real retention success from that, because I think we really work hard with our students that come in as first-time freshmen, and we can do better there. But sometimes I think our transfer students come in and they come up and they get their class schedule and don't really know anyone. Well, this group of 30, and they still get together for lunch every week, so we're going to hopefully increase that.
Good.
I was going to ask about UT Promise numbers, when we might have any projections on those going into next fall.
We hope we start seeing it in the early application process this fall. I think as word gets out, because there'll be two pieces of that. Any student who's already here, if Lauren was from Tipton County and she's a senior, and a rising senior, and her family income is $50,000 or less, she'll be grandfathered in. So we've got to figure out the people that are already here, which we will have a healthy amount, but also looking at the incoming students too. So we're not real sure. In January we'll have a great idea of what those numbers are, and Edie, if you'll help me, we'll give an update on that. But yeah, we're not a lot of excitement out there, and we think we'll get our fair share from West Tennessee. I still, Katie, call West Tennessee Memphis to Nashville. They probably don't appreciate that over in Tennessee, but I'm claiming all that area as West Tennessee. I do think we're going to see a real spike in that, so it's exciting. But I think all of us, all the chancellors were together yesterday in Nashville. We're all sort of scratching our heads because we just don't have any idea how many we're going to have. And we're excited. I hope that in the early application process we get it back.
Do these numbers that you just went over account for our centers as well, or is it just, okay?
It is.
So I can see that being a huge area of impact for.
It really, and I think our consultant that's working with us on the plan, that's one of the things they've identified is you've got a real opportunity in Madison County, not just for Martin campus, but for Jackson. Working, returning adults, and the same in Somerville, just being right there. It's really sort of East Shelby County. There's so many people in that part of Fayette County, but those are two areas. And with an out-of-state, aggressive out-of-state plan, up in Ripley, going up into Missouri and Arkansas. I'm really excited about this.
You said we were up 233 on head count. What is the total head count? If somebody were to say, how many students are there at UT Martin?
7,294
Okay.
as of about 11:15.
Not updated?
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. Yeah.
Okay.
And once we get blessing with our final numbers, we'll email those out. We'll do a press release, but we'll make sure you all get notice of that too.
Okay.
So you can brag your colleagues.
Any other question about the numbers? Those are good numbers and happy to see them increasing. Chancellor, we'll go into Roman numeral 5, which is the campus master plan refinement of the 2015 presentation, and I'll let you make the introductions.
Absolutely. At this time, I would like to call our Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration, Teacher McPherson, and she'll make a few comments and make an introduction as well.
Afternoon. Our master plan is an outlook of our physical space, and it addresses the condition of our buildings and our property. And it also speaks to how we develop our campus. So we have a 10-year cycle in which we look at our master plan and actually develop our campus plan. Our last plan from the master plan was done in 2010. And about midway, 5 years later, we embarked upon a review or a refresh of that plan, and we called it the refinement plan. So in 2015 into 2016, we actually took a look at where we stood and did a refinement of our plan in the placement of different buildings that we want to look at and how we want to grow our campus. Tim Nip, our physical plant director, Dr. Tim Nip, our physical plant director, will actually take you through that process of the refinement and let you know how we engage the constituents for our campus in developing that plan and some of the directions in which we want to take for that plan. And before Dr. Nip comes up, I just want to, as you can hear the physical plant working, I mean, you really can hear them. They really take ownership of the work that they do here. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes work that goes on to take care of the physical buildings that we have and our grounds, and it makes a big difference in what we do. So, Dr. Tim Nip, please come.
Thank you, Peter. I have had the opportunity to be here about 25 years and I'm really excited. I had a chance to see a lot of things built, renovated, and torn down, and the importance of a master plan. Like Peter said, we're going to talk about the 2015 master plan, which is a refinement of 2010. Both of those master plans are on the UTM website. You'll go under A to Z listing, look under C for campus master plan, you'll see those, and you can read those in their entirety. Also, we've got some slides for you this afternoon. As I go through the slides, just feel free to stop me at any time. This is not a formal presentation, and it might be easier if we answer the questions then instead of trying to go through there. As you can imagine, THEC has got definite guidelines on the development of the master plans, and it's a 6-page document, very detailed though in what they want to see. This is actually the first paragraph out of that document, and where it talks about the 10-year time frame. You'll notice it says the university has to retain a consultant to help them develop this master plan. And then it also talks about how the campus should be consistent in their capital submission every year with their master plan. We have a capital program that we put in every year, and we have to make sure that we're consistent with what this master plan says. The consultant that we used over the last 2 times is Marion Folks. He's Centric Architecture out of Nashville. Just did a real super job. And as you look at the 2010 goals that were actually incorporated into the 2015, it really looks at the facilities, what needs to be renovated, expanded,
or new facilities to support the campus academic program and also any social, housing, economic growth for the campus and region here. Jump to the 2015, and along with the 2010 goals, we also added the 2015, and it was to look at the on-campus experience for the students. And a lot of meetings were held, discussions talking about how do we keep the students on campus on the weekend and give them a total experience. Also, how do we improve the campus visually? And then how do we improve on an already good relationship between the university and the surrounding region? And then how do we brand and identify the campus better so people know that you're at UT Martin? It was an intentional effort in the development of the 2015 master plan to include a lot of people. And you can see, I'm not going to read over all these names, but beginning with Dr. Smith, a lot of people pulled together, a lot of ideas shared, a lot of meetings, a lot of feedback. And you can see from the vice chancellors, people on the executive team, also the UT system was involved. A lot of people from throughout the campus and faculty and staff were on the group. And then, of course, alumni and then people from the city of Martin. As we go through the recommendations, keep in mind that a lot of these are long-term. You know, these depend on money, and you can't always do things until you have the money. But the first one looked at student housing, and housing, as a result of the master plan, developed a comprehensive plan that identified some strategies, gave them some detailed information on what they needed to do, and some things that came out of that were to reduce the number of beds on campus. And so looked at taking offline Grove, University Courts, Browning, and Ellington, as money allows, and then replace those with newer beds that were more in line maybe with what we've got. And then it also looked at the student life facilities, ways to enhance the student involvement on campus. One of them was a commons building, which was actually in the UV2 expansion that we did. We just didn't have the money. And what this is a building that allows after-hours food, maybe some gaming opportunities for the students that they don't have right now. And then it also looked at some pavilions on campus that would be at different places, maybe at the pond, might be at Grove when we tear that down. It might be the enhancement of Crisp and also Gooch, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but places that students can gather and socialize and be on campus. I mentioned the comprehensive plan that was developed by Housing. This is just the cover sheet on that. That was a detailed 153-page document that they use as their strategy on how to improve the housing. The historic quad is a very benefit to the campus. It was looked on at how can we further use that resource that we have, and so we looked at Gooch and Crisp, making those to where those could be social gathering areas for the campus, and we'll see those in modification. Then we looked at a new quad. How can we add more green space to the campus? Not just the beautiful campus quad that we have now, but an area that is going to be bounded by the new engineering building and also by sociology and humanities. And this is a real good aerial view of the campus. You can see the quad and the size that it has. Crisp in the center there. You've got the big building, the University Center and Gooch, and their situation on the quad. And then to drill down a little deeper into Crisp, you can see that interior courtyard and how Crisp comes off into the quad area. And so the architect is recommending the blue area, which would be some type of student use, and then the orange would be IT. Okay, and then it could even spill out onto the quad area as a social gathering area. You can, the Gooch patio, you know, it's in need of some type of renovation or enhancement, something that kind of gives it a better look. The architect came up with some type of a plaza, some type of covering that would allow students to spill out into that area. Right now, students, when they get out of class, Sodexo does have a little food bar in there. It's kind of a grab-and-go type thing, but it's very crowded. You know, they get their food, and they're either having to walk out with it, or they're maybe can sit in the lobby, but it's really tight, and so this is an area that students could go, Wi-Fi, charging stations, places to eat food. As we look at the new Latimer Engineering and Science Building, that is the kind of the trend, that's the focal point of that. Students want a place that when they get out of class, that they can, you know, meet, they can study, they can work together. We've got a small cafeteria, small cafe area in the new Latimer building that allow the students to socialize like that. So this would just be a continuation of that. I mentioned the new quad. This is actually a rendering of our new Latimer Engineering and Science building. And this is the beginning of that quad that comes out of there. This is referred to as the STEM courtyard, sociology over there on the quad. And then the architect looked at the fraternities and sororities of Greek life on campus, and how can we enhance that and make that better. And right now, as you're aware, the campus has got 4 sorority lodges. When we were building those, we tore down one of the university courts apartments that was just west of that, and so that gives them a green area. They could use that for picnicking, homecoming activities, and things like that. And then also maybe what meeting buildings or building could be built over there by that. And then also, how do we encourage other fraternities or sororities to build in that area? And then possibly, as we redo the housing, we would build housing that really complements the sorority lodges. Maybe they have their own housing complex right adjacent to their lodges, so it would be very nice. We looked at entryways into the campus. You know, when you come into the Martin campus, you don't have a definite boundary or a feeling when you come in that you're in the Martin campus. So the architect looked at ceremonial entryways that would allow you to have that feeling. This is a real good map. It's a little busy. If you read the document, I urge you to go back and look at this. The red stars are where the entryways will be located. And the architect came up with 2 major types of monuments. One would be a pillar type, and one would be a more grand type. This is a grander type. You can see the limestone caps, the signage in the front, landscape behind it. The top view there is a plan view, you know, so it's got some shape to it. So it would be a definite enhancement, identification, branding as you come into the campus, and give you that feeling. And this is a possible location of the entryways. The bigger monument type things will be on the exterior coming into the campus at the intersection of the bypass, University Street, on the south side of campus coming in, and then on the west side of campus. This is actually from the master plan, but as you know, these are actually built now, so we're actually progressing with this and then other possible locations. The master plan also looked at land acquisitions. You know, all universities have land that they're trying to purchase and trying to make sure that they plan for the future. And so on our master plan, we've identified areas on the south part of campus that would help housing. Also on the east side of campus, that would allow for more parking and academic space. Right now, parking is very limited on the east side of campus. When the Latimer building is built, that's going to be even worse. We'll lose about 200 parking spaces as a result of that building. And then, of course, north of the campus, property would help us with the ag program. There's also property, 74-acre property off Fort Wright Road, which is by the water tower that could be developed for campus and region benefit. The Elam Pool was discussed in the master plan. That's original to the Elam Center back in the mid-'70s. We had a renovation back in 2004 that went in and totally redid the structure of the pool, did some modifications in the mechanical room. About 2014-15, we did more mechanical upgrades to the pool. The pool needs a renovation right now. It needs to have a total refinish of it. We've got some leak problems with it, and so the plan would be to, student rec, put a new pool in that's more student friendly, that's got some things this pool doesn't have. If you've ever been to UT Chattanooga and seen their pool is not brand new, but it's fairly new. They've got some things in there, a lazy river, a big slides and things that attract students over to the pool, and it would bring the pool usage up. So that was on the list. And then the site acquisition, just to show you the locations of that on the south and the east and the north. The master plan also identified a deficit in available space on campus. A new classroom building, offices and labs and classrooms would allow us to make up for that deficit. We're actually building that right now. The Latimer Engineering Science Building is a little over 120,000 square feet of classrooms and offices and labs, and be very nice. And with the Latimer being built, then we look at the renovation of EPS, and a lot of folks are moving out of EPS into the Latimer building, and allows us the opportunity to go in and do building systems upgrade, electrical, mechanical, building finishes, asbestos abatement, and then also make some minor changes to maybe walls or labs to accommodate those people moving into it. That's actually on the capital maintenance list right now. It's number one for UT Martin. It's about $10 million. We thought it was going to get funded last year. It did get funded last year, so we're hoping it gets funded this year and let us get started on that. And the timing of that is pretty good, because we'll get that approved, being designed about the time that the Latimer building is finished and people are moving out, and hopefully get construction going on that. And then this slide just shows you the location, what's in the master plan of the new classroom building, which looks nothing like it. The top one is where we tore down the old ITV communications building, and the Latimer building actually sweeps to the west a little bit with an L. This would be one of the things that, as you update your master plan, that you would show, the latest layout of that. And then this is for you that haven't seen it, you may have already all seen this, but this is actual rendering of the Latimer Engineering Science Building. This is a view actually looking from the quad down on it. This is actually if you're coming into the building from the quad, and a lot of glass. At night when you're walking on the quad, how that's going to just jump out at you. It's going to be such a draw to the campus. And then this is a view off Hurt Street. This is a west elevation, and you can see the observatory on the top. So really nice building. Any questions on the master plan?
Tim, I I was going to ask you a question, and I'm going to give you a little information. Julia asked how many, what the trend was on students, and my assistant over here has already gotten the information. Julia, in 2010, we had 8,469 students. In 2011, we had, and he can send this out to us. 2011, we went down to 7913. 2012, we went to 7715. 2013, we went to 7423. 2014, we went to 7,042. 2015, we went to 6827. You see a trend?
Oh, yeah.
2016, we went to 6705. And then in 2017, a lot of good things happened, and we made it up to 6,800. And then fall of 18 was 7,069. And now we're back to 7,294. My question, Tim, was going to be, and I realize that these are bodies that are at Martin and at the centers and everything else. How many students use this facility that we're sitting in? I mean, and I guess another way is how many people are out on the, in the centers? And then my next question is going to be, how many students can our current infrastructure handle?
That's a good question, Art, and I'm not sure if I've got the exact answer to that. I know when we were really booming with 8,000 students and, we were projecting to go to 10, we had concern with the parking, maybe the classrooms, the dorms. You've got about 2,300 beds for dorms. I don't know. I'm not really sure.
I really didn't expect you to have an exact answer there, but what you're telling me is back when we were at 8,500 students, 10,000 was sort of a figure that
10,000 was kind of a magic number.
Yeah, that y'all were going to get worried about.
Right.
Now, we're really talking more about 8 again.
Because of the dorms.
Right, situation, and looking too regionally, what are we going to be able to recruit and hold? And one of the things that Ruffalo Knowlevitz is going to do is early next year, they're going to tell us, based on national trend data, with an aggressive out-of-state tuition campaign, how many might we expect. And so while we've kind of put a pin in the corkboard at 8,000, it might be 7,900, it might be 8,300, but they're going to be able to tell us.
Is that 8,000 people at Martin or 8,000 total?
It would be all over, but obviously the bulk being right here in Martin. And in terms of, I'll call on, we're putting poor Andy Luder on the spot. Andy, how much did our occupancy rate go up, increase in the residence halls this year over last year?
We're up 150 students
On
over last
campus.
year.
And living on campus, which is, Peter likes that number.
Are they full?
No, residence halls are not. I don't have those final occupancy numbers yet, but we're more full than we have been. Some of our buildings are running around 85 to 90%, and then like Browning and Ellington, the older residence halls, Browning maybe at about 50%. We've got some maintenance to do in some areas that we're not putting students in those rooms, but we've got some roofs that need to go on. Tim's office, just some of that.
Did you or Peter collect any money from part-time tuitions to the dorms that were just there for a couple, 3 days?
Sure.
Bottom line, we picked up 250 and 150 off.
Yeah, and that's good. That's a good point. Go ahead.
Basically, you picked up 250 students and 150 of them went in the dorm.
That's right. And in our return, so freshmen are required to live on campus unless they live in one of the counties contiguous
Joining.
to Weakley County, if they live at home, if they live in one of those counties. But we had a higher percentage of returning students come back and live with us a second year also. So we like that
Good.
trend, and we're doing a lot to hold on. But we can handle more students in the residence halls right now. We'd love to see that number continue to grow.
And Julia, too, and you've heard this before, but our retention rate for students that live on campus is higher than that of
Oh,
students
yeah.
who live off.
Really?
So it's proximity to class, it's just easier, more convenient, so they tend to do better in GPA, but also persist. So we love them coming to campus for at least a year at that ground.
Well, when you have a new building like a Latimer Engineering, and are you projecting growth for students for that because of the?
We are. We think that'll be, obviously, it'll be shiny and brand new in some pretty hot areas too, in terms of not just attractive majors, but potential for jobs, stemming after. So we are anticipating an update. And, people love the new building and come check it out, but those programs are really good. We'll have a groundbreaking, and we'll have a board meeting in Dr. Caldwell's office in that building.
Oh, good.
Have you picked it out yet, Dr. Caldwell?
No, sir, but
Oh.
surely the corner.
Okay.
I was surprised when I read that was the first academic building that had been built here like in 20-plus years,
Yes, that's right.
which, my PEP committee, when I went to, or PEP group, when I went to school, was my mom and dad making sure I went to school, But what we have seen, like other universities, is quality of life improvements, the student rec center and things like that. Where do you think we are in comparison to our peers in the region with the quality of life? Because, that's what brings the kids.
I would say, and would ask Dr. Luder to back me up, I think in terms of our campus rec center, it's fantastic.
Agreed.
But I think already we're seeing new things. We're seeing our peers have caught us, and in some respects have gone. At Chattanooga now they've got a lazy river, which I tell our students we have a forked deer. I don't know what the big deal is, but you are seeing additions at some other places. But our rec center, when the design was done, and it's a fantastic building. And we were just meeting this morning talking about we need to expand rec fields. We've got great recreation fields, but looking at a few more. So we're really engaged with students, and I know Dr. Luder and a group of students and group staff, student life, just went and toured some facilities to see what are other schools doing. The biggest piece that has our students excited, and I know SGA's talked about it a little bit, is there's an interest in a new pool. But new pools are pretty pricey. So, but anyway, we jumped out ahead, and I think others have caught us. And some are doing a few new things, but I think we really do a good job, and our facility staff does a great job of maintaining those areas.
Any questions for Tim or Petra, either? I'm sure Petra will tell you, you've got plenty of money, just go spend it.
It's not what you use. Hey, thanks so much.
Thank you, Tim.
One of our responsibilities is ultimately to push this campus as hard as we possibly can. One of the things that I'm most proud of being a UT Martin graduate is when I open up the newspaper or open up some of Keith's blogs and I see some awards and all that this campus has gotten. And I sort of ask Bud Grimes and his staff and Keith to sort of summarize where we are, because I read a great article in the paper the other day about this university expanding. They were just talking about what a great university they were. They had the second best nursing program in in the state and, you know, come here, come here, come here. And I thought I knew the answer, but I looked up to see who was number one, and we're sitting at number one right now. And so we all should have the responsibility of pushing that every time we can. And every time you get something on social media from this guy over here, share it with your friends. I mean, that's pretty cheap advertising. Tell us.
Well, a couple of big ones in this past 2 weeks. RN Nursing, which is a national organization that regularly, annually ranks nursing programs, put out its most recent list, and we were tied for first place nationally with our nursing program, and now that's a brag point. And they look at things like quality of program, the number of their passage rate and NCLEX, job placements, and so we were tied for first nationally. But what's interesting is there were 16 in first place nationally that were tied.
There were 100 scores.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But when you break it down, we were the top program in the state, and that looks at everything from NCLEX passage, the program, the curriculum, but also job placement. And we're real proud of that. U.S. News and World Report just came out, and we were tops in Tennessee in 3 areas that we're pretty proud of. We were the top regional university, not only in that list of top universities in the South. We were number 1 in Tennessee, and that's obviously non-land grant publics. So we're really happy about that. They look at program quality, they look at cost and affordability, they look at graduation rates, student debt, that sort of thing in determining. And so really nice to be listed as the top regional, and you know there's some great regionals in the state of Tennessee, and happy about that. One that I'm really proud of is we're the top university for veterans in the state, and amongst the top in the South, but certainly in the state of Tennessee. And it's great when an outside group tells you that. The feedback we hear from our student soldiers and veterans certainly back that up. But we take that very seriously, and we're really proud. The one I'm probably most proud of is we were related in terms of the state, Best Value University for Social Mobility. And what that really means is how we are attracting and graduating economically disadvantaged students. And we feel like we're an high quality access university, but when we're able to attract them and graduate them, that's a fantastic thing. But to be recognized by U.S. News and World Report as the top regional in the state for doing that, we're pretty proud of that. So those are brand new. We're still waiting to get some more data from them, so I think you'll see us talk more about that as we get more information from U.S. News and World Report. We are really excited about that. Now, we need to do better in all those areas, and looking for continual improvement in all those areas, because just because we're best regional in the state in those areas, we can do better. We know we can do better, so we'll look for that. But thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk about that.
You know, the one you didn't mention, which has slayed me, for the last 2 or 3 years, our college has gone and competed in a worldwide aerospace engineering competition and finished 2nd or 3rd in the world. And the amazing thing is we don't have an aerospace engineering curriculum here. And
We've got a great dean now.
it's,
Dr. Robinson.
okay.
That's right. We've got good people, is what we have.
Well, and it slays me that they do that well. I'm proud of them.
They get jobs in aerospace engineering.
Good.
fields.
Maybe we ought to consider an aerospace engineering.
We should correct that.
Talk to teachers. She's okay. Any other comments or questions or anything like that for any of the people in the audience? Charlie Deal hasn't said anything, which is almost a world's record for being in a meeting, him not saying anything.
Well, ask
Intelligent.
a question that may or may not be, but how easy is it for a student to get particularly a master's degree here, using basically online?
Very, very easy. Very easy. Matter of fact, you know, I think the great thing about our graduate school is the portability. And example of that, Julia, we've got a cohort for strategic communication that's based out of Nashville this year. So majority of that will be, now we'll have faculty that'll go over, but majority of the coursework interaction will be online.
Is that the degree that was new 2 or 3 years ago?
That's right. And it's really
Okay.
grown. It's really taken off. So thank you for helping us push that through. But that's been a really good one. But whether it's MBA or agriculture, there are really good opportunities online. And I think through this feasibility study with strategic enrollment, you're going to see more of those materialize as we see what's needed in Jackson, what's needed in Somerville, what might have broad appeal across the region. You'll see more of those.
I think at one time you were working with one of the community colleges and TCAD and stuff on the garage. Anything going on with that?
It is. Matter of fact, we've got a meeting that, if you want Charlie to talk, he can.
Oh, me.
But we've got a meeting this afternoon where we're actually giving THEC an update on
Okay.
that. And again, the concept is we'll have UT Martin, space for our students, faculty and staff to collaborate with local industry, but also have Dyersburg State in there offering a 2-year degree program, and then a local TCAT will be in there offering certificate programs, opportunities for Weakley County or any other surrounding area to come in high school and work with mechatronics. Be lots of outreach be done through that building. So it's still on the priority list for UT, and we're just going to give THEC this afternoon an update on where we are, timeline, and making sure all our I's are dotted and T's are crossed with them. So really excited about that. And again, that'll be over near Pacer Pond, near the pond, or off Hannings Lane, but you'll be able to see it from Skyhawk Parkway. So really excited about that.
Really, I think since our last meeting, Dr. Deal doesn't he have a new position?
That's
Tried to find him something he can do.
That's
but
right. We're trying. That's right. So Charlie Deal, Executive Director for Research, Outreach, and Economic Development. And one of the things that evolved out of our strategic plan was a real need to promote that regionally. And so we retooled the traditional Office of Research Grants and Contracts, took some of our outreach programs and brought it into one place, and did a national search, and had one applicant. Charlie Deal applied. That was really supposed to be Art got it, but anyway, but he's done a great job there, and he is working with several others on campus, including Shadow and Phil and Petra, to really look at the development of the garage, this project. So
Is
we're
he
really
working
excited.
with industrial development companies and stuff at the different counties? Because I know your predecessor, Rich Helgeson, came in and helped us in Obion County with one, and I almost credit him with getting that particular industry in, because he did a great job.
That is great.
Any other questions then? Our next meeting, I am told, is January the 10th, and I wrote 19 down, but gee whiz, it's going to be 2020. It is hard to believe. January 10th of 2020. Edie, I'm assuming that is a Friday also.
It's Friday also.
I'm also assuming it will be right here.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have nothing else. Do any of y'all have anything else? We appreciate you coming. We really do. Some of you who live a little further than the rest of us.
That's right. Came to my knees.
Get a little peace and quiet in the car. So it's actually not bad. I appreciate it.
We'll do a photo in the next room, and I will entertain one more motion.
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn
Second.
from Al,
Second.
and Katie was second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
By the way, we were able to vote voice because everyone was here. In the past, remember, if we have somebody on the phone, we actually have to do a roll call. So we haven't circumvented the law or the rules in any way. Thank you.